Okay, welcome back to the Immigration Stat Us podcast. I'm Myron Turner, and man, I'm really excited for this episode. We have Gary Walker here, and he's been here for 24 years, all the way from Johannesburg, South Africa. Now, this is episode 5 of season 3. You know what that means? That means we're coming to an end. So please click, follow, subscribe if you haven't done already, and share the content. Please, I still need your support. But we have one more episode after this, and I'm really excited. Special thanks to our sponsors, as usual, Ministry of Ethnic Communities, Uranga. That will also be the Campfire Studios as well. So please tune in. This is going to be awesome. Switch it up now. Gary Walker, welcome to the show. I'm super excited to have you here. As usual, every time we talk, it's enriching, it's educating, it's inspiring. And just welcome to the Immigration Stat Us podcast. As you know, we have listeners from all around the world. Usually when I interview people from South Africa, my South African stats go all the way up. So yeah, by all means, you know, the floor is yours, but we're going to get straight into your immigration story. How did you end up in New Zealand?
Thanks, Mara. Thanks for inviting me along. It's interesting. I had a great life in South Africa. And the one day, and I think like most South Africans, I walked around, I always used to have a gun on my ankle.
Okay.
Because I used to have to protect myself. We had a couple of bad incidents. My mum got attacked. We had people breaking into the house with guns, and I had to run around the house with a gun. And I think I realized the minute that I was putting the walls up higher and higher and putting more electrical fences around my house that the time had come for me to consider elsewhere. But I was in a good job. I just didn't know how to leave. You know, the South African rand was great. I was doing well. Luckily, I had a New Zealand girlfriend.
There it is.
Yep. The New Zealand girlfriend and I had a baby, and we decided that was good. She eventually said, look, I can't live here anymore. We were just always in fear for our lives. We drive around the block every time we come home. We check in the bushes just to see that it was safe, and we drive around the block one more time before we drove in.
Yep.
My sister had been attacked. My one sister had been killed. And it was just, all these things just made us live on a knife edge all the time. Excuse the pun.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah. And she said, I've got to go. I've got to take my son. I've got to make him safe. I've got to take him back to New Zealand. And I was like, this just seems so far the other side of the world. And I had my whole family there. Everybody else was there except for my partner and my son. And she said, I've just got to go. And I did a lot of soul searching. I thought, I can't leave my son behind. I've got to grow up with him. So we did the right thing. We packed our bags. I tried to make an application. And we made an application as partners. New Zealand didn't accept it. I came over to try it out. New Zealand didn't accept it. They said that the fact that we had a son together wasn't evidence of a relationship, just one night. So it was really strange.
That's actually true, though.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So
could have been accidental.
Yeah, could have been accidental. Spot on.
Could have just fell on top of her.
Yeah, that's what
things
happen. You know. But I think that was the whole point, and I realized that there was a lot of people trying to get in, and a lot of people that were, playing funny buggers. So in the end, I actually went through the old-fashioned way. I went to go and get myself a job. I made all the applications. I did my degrees. I promised to put funds in the right places, and eventually I got through on enough points to actually be granted immigration status. So Valentine's Day back in 1998. Made the move and came across to New Zealand with this little 18-month-old boy in tow, which was quite tough, yeah.
Well, let's not mull over that point about your degrees and your education. Let's not be too humble here, because, Gary has a lot going on. Now, I asked, can I refer to him as a neuroscientist before we started recording? So we'll use that, but he also has a bachelor's in psychology, computer science, diploma in hypnotherapy as well. Master's in NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming. And he does leadership training and strategic management. Also trained as a youth line mentor and a lifeline counselor. So he's power packed with wisdom and just information. So this is going to be a good one, as you guys know who listen and watch and it's going to be a really good one. So that actually is really cool to hear your immigration story, and I love hearing people's stories, especially something like that. You know, you started off. Actually, I've never even heard of someone actually having to use a gun on their ankle. I've seen it in movies, but I never actually heard it. I never met anyone who actually done it before. You know, so my wife was from South Africa, so I'm married to a Sotho family. So they'd always tell me stories about, you know, how it is there. People robbing you at red lights, the police bribing you. It's just like, when I hear these stories, it's like, whoa, man. Like, I thought Chicago was bad, you know. But yeah, so you've been here for 24 years, correct?
Yeah.
You want to share a highlight? So your immigration process was a little bumpy in the beginning, but eventually you did, you know, get through, and then you end up getting, was it a work visa or a partnership visa?
No, in the end, it was a standard work visa.
Standard work visa?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was lucky enough that I had a partner. Well, in that stage, I had a partner. So I think I was going to get in. There's no doubt about it, but I still had to work quite hard to get in.
Okay. So once you're here, so out of that 24 years, I ask everybody this question. Out of that 24 years, what would be like that highlight, sparks in the air moment where you fell in love with this land?
Actually, Myron, that's a good point. I'm going to say it's almost day one that I arrived, and it's actually
love at first sight.
Yeah, I'll tell you why. Arrived here from New Zealand, from South Africa. Sold my house, sold everything we had, put everything into a container, and moved across. And I thought I was doing okay. I came across here, sold a house, made a bit of money from that. I had $22,000 to my name, which is not bad. All right, that's it. That's all I had. That's all I had to my name. Came to New Zealand, and that wasn't a lot of money.
Yeah.
But day one, I'd done all the moving. Some of the money disappeared, and I had about $10,000 in cash, because South Africa had a very interesting way of moving money out of the country. I had $10,000 in cash, and I had it in a wallet. And I was staying at my future in-laws' place. Decided to go and put the money into the bank. Went outside, had my package, headed off to the bank, put it on the roof. Got to the bank, looked around, it's gone. Somewhere between leaving the house and arriving at the bank, I'd put my wallet and everything on the roof of the car to open up the car, to put the kid in. Oh, my
gosh.
To get the kid into the car seat, as you do, put the stuff on the top. There it is. All my money. It's gone. I headed back to the place, and I was beside myself. I just didn't know what I was going to do. Got back there and walked in, and I'm like, and I was searching the road, searching everywhere. Nothing. And as I walked into the house, the neighbor was there, and the neighbor said, "You dropped something." And they handed me the wallet.
Wow.
It was like,
good job, New Zealand.
Yeah. And I thought,
good job.
That's pretty impressive. You know, that's pretty impressive. And I think what cinched it for me even better is that we got the local Henderson News. I don't remember what the thing was called, the Henderson Weekly or something like that. And I'd come from the Sandton Gazette, which had murders and robberies. Yeah. And this day we only had 9 murders. We only had 12 killings and attacks and all the rest. And this would be on a daily basis. I come here, and on the front page of the Henderson Weekly was "Air brakes too loud down past Cemetery Hill." And I was like, what? And then a little thing at the bottom, outrage at the fact that parents letting their kids stand in the trolleys at Countdown or Woolworths, whatever it was called in those days.
Yes.
And I'm like, I love this place.
Yes.
What a headline.
Yes.
What a newspaper. And
New Zealand News.
Yeah, no, it was not difficult. One day, and I just went, here's my space. Here's my space.
No one's ever said that before on this podcast, but it's so true. That New Zealand News one, that actually hit me. I was like, what is this? Like, it was like they did a top story one time about a woman who, something about her garden. Like, it was on the front page of the news, and they were printing this. Like, I was like, wow, that's news. Like, her tulips aren't growing. Like, it's just, wow,
news, yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That is great. Keep that rolling.
I love New Zealand. When I saw that, I just thought, yeah, this place is great. It wasn't small-minded. It was celebrating the good stuff and the stuff that wasn't impactful to people's lives.
Yes.
Wasn't hurting people, planet, animals. It was great.
Wow. Okay. Now we're going to move on to a low point.
Oh.
Adversely, like, can you give me something that made you maybe second guess your decision to even come down here in the first place?
Oh, look, I think that right from the beginning, leaving my family behind, and I'm pretty sure anybody who immigrates has that regret of what we leave behind.
Hard.
I still got my parents there. My parents are still struggling in South Africa, and I really want to be able to help them. My family's still back there, lots of friends. And I think leaving them behind was my low point, is just what I left behind. And to a large extent, it was the memories that I left there. But secondly, in terms of New Zealand, it was the first time I went to a bar, and this is probably the interesting low light, is I went to the bar in South Africa. We say, yeah, my round, and we do it easily. Because a round of beers, like 8 or 10 beers, will cost you all of, $4. And then I got the bill from the bar here, and it was like $55, 10 times more, 20 times more. And I suddenly realized that the earning power that I had from South Africa was nothing. And New Zealand was expensive. And I think that was my low light. It was like, wow, I can't afford a house. I had a house in South Africa. It wouldn't even give me, selling my house in South Africa at full price, wouldn't even get me half a deposit, wouldn't give me anything.
Yep.
And I think that was my low light. I just thought, how can I ever make it here? This place is just too expensive.
Yeah.
And I think that was the part that was just a little tough for me.
And that's still relevant now for
it hasn't changed, I think.
People who have been here for a long time, even myself, been here for 8.5 years. And as a migrant, it's just like, wow, I'm still homeless, after that long, because you have to save up to buy milk. It's just like, it's so expensive.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's worth the money. It's just like,
you start to earn the money and it starts to feel less impactful.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, it starts to feel, when you start to actually build some traction on your own income, it's not as bad. But, okay, so favorite holiday spots to visit in New Zealand?
Super easy. Queenstown. Absolutely. Queenstown, Wanaka. I remember my very first trip. I've only discovered skiing and snowboarding since I got to New Zealand, because they don't do it in South Africa. And I discovered going down to Queenstown. I remember the plane landing and thinking, this is amazing. God, this is absolutely amazing. And I couldn't believe how beautiful everything was.
It is.
I remember learning to snowboard and just every now and then just stopping.
Snowboard?
And
so how do you go from skiing to snowboarding? That's a bit.
Snowboarding, yeah.
That's expert level stuff.
It's fall over stuff a lot and hurt yourself a lot. But yeah, it's good. I love it. Love it. I really played that. And then I remember driving around Wanaka, and I think that was the moment. I remember every time I go around a corner, you see another lake that's mirroring a mountain that's just got those snow caps on it. And honestly, I'm not a hugely religious guy, but I was like, God, are you serious? How did you do this?
Yes.
Wow. And it was just phenomenal. And yeah, there's just no doubt about it. That was my space. And I loved it. Snowboard every day. It's not easy to get there. It's expensive, but it was really awesome to do. Yeah.
Still, but you don't mind the cold?
I love it. Love it. Yeah, I come from South Africa. It's different.
I think that was my only, me coming from Chicago, and we have bad snowstorms there all the time. So I was like, man, this is not really my idea of a holiday. People love it. They love being down there in the cold. I went skiing, and it was a humiliating experience. I knocked it off the bucket list. I probably will never do it again. It was the fact that these 7-year-old kids were skiing past me, looking down on me with disappointment. That was the
and I get that.
6 or 7 kids skiing by me, like, what's this guy doing?
It's okay. I'm on a snowboard, and the last time we went snowboarding down even in the North Island. Coming down the mountain, I'm a bit of an old guy, like 120 years old, but I'm coming down the mountain. It was beautiful enough. I just had a T-shirt on, and I felt like I was surfing down the hill. And I remember pulling up to the line, and these other guys on the line said, aren't you too old to be snowboarding? Obviously I am.
Okay. Are you lost up here? Would you like me to escort you down the mountain, sir? Yeah, that
How
must.
did you find
yeah.
yourself on a snowboard? I
Must
don't
be-
know.
I think it's just the attitude people have on the mountain down there. Like,
Yeah.
like, who are you to tell me
Yeah.
what to do with my life? I'm going to be here, even if I fall.
Yeah.
I'm going to be here. I can't go as fast as you, but I can go. Cool. All right. So what about? This has to be a good one for this one. A good Kiwiism, something that you just can't really get your mind around, even to this day. Something that you consider funny or strange, or something that Kiwis, that's strictly Kiwi that you just can't get your mind around.
Yeah, I could go down a few tracks on this one. I think the obsession with rugby is amazing. Still can't quite get over it, but it's pretty amazing. And I'm very proud that a nation that is super small can do so well at rugby. I don't follow rugby, but the fact that they do very well. And this one might be a little bit. Maybe I need to get more information on it. But I find that there's a lot of help from the government here. There's a lot of help for homeless. There's a lot of help for people that are struggling. There's social services that are all over the place compared to where I came from, where you'd have 45 to 50% unemployment. There's no such thing as benefits. There's no such thing as handouts.
Right. That's right.
And here they just seem to support everybody that is here, because it's not necessarily illegal immigration here, but they do tend to support everybody, and people will still choose to live. And I don't say choose to live on the street, because I think that often people fall into those times. But there's amazing help here, and there's so much support, and yet you still have a culture of people complaining about things and choosing to shun the support that is out there. And I think that's the part that I struggle with, because I really think that we are given so much here, and if we just accept stuff and stop being grateful for what is here, instead of just always finding the negative in everything, that to me is the part that I haven't quite got over. I just think this country is so spectacular.
Well, that's the thing.
And what we do for people is wonderful. Yeah.
That's what entitlement does. Like when you start serving people and you at a buffet, it's really easy to get picky and say what you don't like. Yeah. Because it's a buffet. It's more than enough here.
It's the nature of whinging. It's just drama. Just find something to be dramatic about. Oh, the traffic is horrible. Well, you're driving a car. Oh my God, this has got a pothole. Well, have you been to other countries to go and see where you actually have a bit of road amongst all the potholes? Oh, the crime is horrible. There was a ram raid last week. Well, have you been to, I always find that there's a lot of focus on the negative and stuff that's not great. And I know that is, maybe that's coming through, but there's so much good here as well. And I think,
sure is, man. Yeah. It sure is. Everything is by perspective. I had a guy when I was fresh in New Zealand, like maybe 2010. Around that time, and where I'm from, someone's homeless, if they're out on the street and literally living on the road, you give them something, you give them some money, you give them something, help them along,
whatever, yeah.
And this guy, I think this was it wasn't Ponsonby, it was Grafton. I never forgot this. It was the guy laying on the ground in Grafton, and we had that day the church we were handing out food. Handing out plates and stuff like that. And I gave the guy, tried to get sick out the money. So I gave him money and food, right? And he looked at me strange. And then he put the plate back towards my torso. And he's like, I don't want this. And I'm like, what's going on? What was wrong? And I was like, what did I do? Sorry to offend. What's going on? He was really angry. He's like, you need to understand one thing. I'm out here because I choose to be. And I'm like, I'm sorry? Did you just say choose? I was perplexed. I literally didn't know what to do. I took the plate of food and I just walked away, and I was just like, wow, he just gave me, I literally thought about that for like 3 weeks. He gave me something to think about, like, you are laying on the street because you choose to be.
Now you understand what I've just said.
Oh, 100%. 100%. It's just like, it just blows me away. But then it's another complex problem because some of these guys are mentally ill and they're out on the street. So it's different when they aren't able to make certain choices. But for the people who are and they're not mentally ill, I'm confused about those people. It's just I don't understand. But anyway, do you have any immigration tips and tricks or hacks for people who are thinking about coming over?
Well, I was lucky enough. I landed a job with Canon, and I used to work for Canon in South Africa. Landing a job here with Canon, and it was nice for me. I was lucky to go and work for them and go and spend a lot of time there. And over the many years I've been here, I've recruited a lot of people. And I've been lucky enough to read the CVs, and I've always tried to give a good look at anybody. It doesn't matter if you're immigration. I've tried not to be only New Zealand. I'm trying to get the right people for the job.
Yeah.
And to me, the work ethic has always been one that people say that they have and do. But I think that, and certainly maybe this is my experience, people from South Africa, people from countries where it's a lot tougher to get jobs and you don't have those social services to wrap around you. People are hungry and they'll work. They'll do whatever it takes to make some money. And their work ethic is really high. And that really comes across in some CVs, and that really comes across in some interviews. So my sense would be that if you are from a country that doesn't have that social wraparound, if you had to really fight for every dollar, for every meal that you've had and things like that, not necessarily fight, but you really, you don't have anything to fall back on, so you've got to be hungry all the time. I can see that, and I think that a lot of those, if they came through in the jobs, doesn't matter that you've cleaned houses or cooked this or swept that. That to me shows the work ethic. It's not just about. It's not just about I had some experience that I did in my bachelor's in this, or I did my degree in that. What have you done? How have you been working to look after yourself? How have you actually been taking care of you and your family? If that's in the CV, and if that's the story that is told in terms of being really genuinely committed to how you have a work ethic that's above and beyond, that to me stands out like crazy. Yeah.
That really good advice.
Yeah.
That's actually really good advice because, I'm also in recruitment, and I am inclined towards the CVs that show the person versus just the person's skill set and what they can bring to the table. It does. Yeah. And that's one thing that I think Kiwis are trying to tell me that when I showed them my CV, but they just didn't know how to say it without offending me. So I got offended. They would say, your CV is too American. That's what they would say. It's too American. Translation, we need to know what type of guy we're dealing with.
Yeah. You can teach skills, but you can't teach attitude. You can't teach.
Yeah. Where's your character? We want to know what type of guy we're dealing with. And it's one of the things I've grown to admire about Kiwis. They definitely are like all about character, who you are as a person. What are other people saying about you? What are your cousins saying about you? What are your friends saying? Yeah. They're about that. Yeah. And I love that. I just think that the way they are communicating that doesn't always come across.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Because of that, the lack of confrontation. So it's just like, I'm trying to tell you got food in your teeth, but I'm not going to tell you directly you got food in your teeth. I'm just going to keep making strange faces at your mouth.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what we experienced. No, that's good. So any other closing thoughts on any new immigrants? Or
I think New Zealand could easily and happily do with more people, and I'd love to see more people coming through New Zealand. This country's really got space. There's good space to actually grow, and I think it's bring them on.
All right. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Gary. That concludes our first segment for us. Awesome. All right, Gary, that was really, really good. And I appreciate you sharing your immigration story. Hopefully you encourage not just other South Africans, but other people around the world who can hear your heart behind, how much you've fallen in love with this land. So this second segment, I've entitled it, This Is Who I Am. And we're going to be discussing the habits and the thought patterns that we follow and why. There's a reason why I framed it that way. I thought about this long and hard. Like I told you earlier before we start recording, I always choose these subjects based on the guest that I'm talking to. And I feel like you really would add a lot of value to this subject. We live in a world where people want to be better, right? Everyone, we want, for the most part, we want to be. We're not talking about those who are happy being, mediocre. Everyone I know, the people who run Campfire Studios, the people at my job, everyone I know that they're reaching towards something. But the problem is we actually are getting our own way a lot. And if we get in our own way, I can definitely hold my hand up and say, I know what that's like. you get in your own way. You stop yourself from reaching your own goals and broadening your own horizon. So, and then it's the outside infrastructure and the forces that deal with that. So I wanted to talk about that and just hear what you had to say from the neuroscientist perspective, because I think it's really interesting what you have to share. So the first question would be, so we're all set into certain thought patterns and daily routines. If some of them are unhealthy, how can we begin to actually change? Now, this is around the people who feel like they keep going in circles. They just keep going in circles, and they have certain things they just can't seem to stop doing, no matter how hard they try. How do we change these habits?
Tough question there. I'll take us back a step, and I think this is something that I've struggled with as being a coach and a counselor over many years. So with my background in psychology and NLP, I try and help people using NLP, neuro-linguistic program, to reprogram their brain in a better way. And you're right, I had this belief that everybody wants to do better. Quickly, I discovered as I started this process that there was two types of people.
Okay.
And it was the difference between counseling and coaching. Counseling, it comes to where people are lying on the ground. They just can't move. And all they really want to do is just to be heard and just to be helped to sit up. They're not about getting better. They don't want to go fast. They don't want to achieve more. They just want to sit up and actually be noticed and just get back into the world. That's counseling. And it's as much as you want, you can coach as much as you want. You can give great hacks and tips on setting life goals and putting a vision board together and identifying areas of your life. But some people just want to get off the ground. And that's when counseling is important. That's when somebody's suffering with something quite heavy. Maybe it's a mental illness. Maybe it's something that's dealing with something that was quite traumatic for them. Maybe it's somebody who's just, and I dare say it because this is what happens a lot of times, sitting in their dramas for so long that they become the drama. Telling everybody that wants to listen that I am this and I am this and I am depressed and I am sad and I can't move and I can't do anything and I'm lazy. And they have this identity of not being anything. And all they're wanting to do is just be noticed and be helped up. So that's the first part. They don't necessarily want to be better. They just want to be noticed. The second part is when people are standing and then they want to be better. That's when you want to aim them at the right place. As you said, some people are just going in circles, not actually moving forward. When you do a good coaching with them, you actually aim them in the direction that they actually want to go. Then you help push them to make them move a little bit further. So that's the key difference. And I know I've taken a bit of a roundabout way to get to your question.
No. I'm soaking it in.
So the point being that it's very often that people are very clear on what they don't want. And often I've sat in a coaching session and I'm saying, all right, so what is, well, I don't want to be fat. I don't want to live with this person. I don't want to live in this house. And they're very clear about all the things they don't want. And unfortunately, we've got a great brain. The brain's normally split into two. We have a conscious brain, a chatty conscious brain. We have an unconscious brain. The unconscious brain will do everything we want it to do. It listens to us. It'll try and meet our needs all the time. For example, smoking, and I'm going to come back to where we were. For example, smoking, people are going, well, I want to stop smoking. The unconscious brain says, yes, but every time you get stressed, you go outside and you have a cigarette and you immediately feel better. I want you to do that. So he will stop, won't allow the person to stop smoking. It's as simple as that. Because the unconscious brain is always trying to help us get to a certain space. So what does this mean? I've got a conscious brain that's talking, this is what I don't want, this is what I do want. The unconscious brain just trying to help us.
When you say unconscious brain, is that another word for subconscious mind?
Yep.
Okay, just for that.
Yeah. I'm going to say the unconscious is because we're not consciously aware of it. That's really why we'd say subconscious, unconscious. The brain only has two mechanisms. That's all it has. The subconscious, unconscious, really only has 2 points to it, is to survive and to have pleasure. That's all it is. That's just the core of what it is.
The unconscious
brain. Yeah, the brain.
The brain itself.
Yeah, it's just to survive and have pleasure. So anything that we want to do, it'll put it back into that perspective. No matter what, if you say, look, I want to not eat things because I want to, it says, no, you need to survive, eat it. So it really overrides a lot of things. So there's a lot of those two brains fighting each other all the time. So that's why sometimes it's a little hard to change things. So how do you do it? Well, the process is fairly simple. What happens is we take on an identity first. This is who we are. We decide we are a depressed person, or we decide we're a go-get-it person. As an example, I'll just use those two extremes. That's our identity. If we decide we're depressed or we're no good for things, we say that all the time. We tell our brains that all the time, and the brain starts to wire whatever language we use all the time. It just hard codes it through neurons firing together to say, I am depressed. I am scared of spiders. I can't drink coffee after 5 o'clock in the night. I don't sleep at night. I'm always stressed to do public speaking. All these words that we say all the time, we actually wire ourselves to think that way. And that just sits within our brain. And it becomes our identity. I'm a terrible public speaker. Whatever the case may be, we create an identity around it. Because we made that identity, we then do behaviors that go along the same process. Like we'll never put ourselves up to go and public speak, or we'll avoid spiders, or in South Africa it's a problem, here not so much. We'll do things, we have behaviors that really mimic our identity. And worse, we then have habits that further move that along the line. So we will go and grab, if we're an overeater, if we have a little bit of a weight problem, we identify, oh no, look, I'm just fat, or I can't stop eating. That's our identity. The behavior is to eat all the time, and we'll go and get habits. We'll go to the supermarket, we'll buy the packet of crisps instead of buying the pack of apples. So we have habits, behaviors, it becomes our identity. So one of the key things is to reprogram our mind. This is where the neuroscience comes in. So we reprogram our mind by getting very clear on what we want instead of not what we don't want, but what we want. To focus on what we want. And this means sitting down and almost journaling, almost saying to yourself, this is what I want around, and I'd say you can do it on 4 areas of your life: health, wealth, relationships, and self. I want to be healthy. I want to weigh X, Y, Z. I want to be slim, toned, and healthy. I want to be flexible. That's health. Wealthy, I want to have enough money so that I feel free enough to go and make choices, make my family feel happy. I want to, et cetera, et cetera. Just knowing what you want and putting it down into a really concise way. Relationships, I want to be surrounded by people that lift me up, keep me positive. So getting very clear on what it looks like
really detailed,
in a great way. Yeah, in a nice detailed way. And from a self side, I want to wake up feeling positive. I want to not procrastinate, but that's going away from. I want to be proactive at stuff. So just changing our language to always be positively focused.
Okay.
Yes, here you go. I do a lot of
All right. He's saying a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's saying a lot in a small. So okay, what I'm hearing you say is you set that up, but then you actually have to meditate on that and then actually literally say it out loud. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. So I said a lot. The whole purpose being the fact that we want to do better, but to do better, we have to know what we want first up. And to know what we want, we need to get clarity on what we want. And we don't just get clarity by just having clarity. We actually have to work at getting clarity. And that means sitting down with yourself, a coach, a YouTube clip, whatever the case may be, and getting clear on what it is that you want in your life.
And that's how you start the process. So this is like almost like you're saying the unconscious mind is like a movie projector, right? And whatever image is projecting, no matter what you're trying to do in your conscious mind,
it's playing it.
That unconscious mind or subconscious mind is playing this image of, hey, I'm actually a loser, so I'm gonna lose.
Yeah. So you've got to rewrite the script.
Wow.
That's exactly what it is. And in fact, a slight segue, one of the key things in psychology or in NLP, we would work with some form of post-traumatic stress syndrome where we have a phobia about something. Maybe just a phobia. We have a phobia about spiders or flying or whatever. Most of those phobias came from an instant where we made a decision. We were on a flight. There was a huge jar. in the plane and it bumped, and our significant other grabbed our hands and said, I don't want to die. And that whole sense of that moment then triggered into our brains, I'm now scared of flying. It's not a rational thing. There's lots of people that fly all the time, but we have an irrational sense of fear of flying.
Wow.
We've written that into our subconscious. So every time we think about flying, we say, oh, yeah, I don't like flying. We said those words. So once again, the subconscious writes the script and puts it into the script. You don't like flying. Jump on a plane, you hold the things tightly. I don't like flying. You're telling everything about your body. You're telling it that you don't like it. That's what happens. We reinforce the script all the time. So there's a great technique that they use in NLP whereby we actually say, let's have a look at climbing on a plane, but let's go and play it backwards, do it in black and white. We pretend that you're looking at yourself, getting into a plane. We do it in black and white. We change different characters. It's an NLP process. And by realizing it is just a script, it's just a movie that's playing, you start to step out of it and you start to realize, actually, it's just nothing. I'm not that person. That's not my identity. So you start to rewire yourself.
So, I'm sorry, you're making me think about my children because my children have gone through phases where they were afraid of something and then they weren't. So are you saying that even like we go through this as children as well? We go through a point where we make the switch, but then we stop doing it as adults.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens. And the reason we stop doing it, and that's funny enough, it's not that we stop doing it, it's just that we like to get attention. So as adults, we tell other people, oh yeah, no, loud noises scare me. Oh no, I don't like to drive. We say all these stories. We come up with so many stories about how we might be liked or how somebody will give us sympathy or whatever the case may be. We tell ourselves all these stories about who we are and who we are not. And that's the part that rewires into our brain all the time. We retell ourselves story.
Wow. Okay. We got to move on to the second question. Okay. So what are some of the hardest things to change in our minds and why?
So we kind of covered this a little bit. So the hardest thing to change is when we have an identity or a behavior.
So it is the identity, the subconscious identity, who you think you are, and everything comes from that.
Yeah. So that's one of the hardest things to change. And funny enough, it's also, I don't want to say it's one of the easiest things to change, but there's a nice, easy process to change it if you do make that decision. So let's take stopping drinking, maybe not procrastinating. Maybe what are some of the more common ones? Procrastination, drinking, eating. Wow. You can name any of the things that.
It's so many different things.
Yeah, and a lot of people struggle with that. So step one, get clear on what you want instead. Get very clear on what you want. And then step two, start putting in small habits that move you towards where you want to be. And those small habits, if you want to lose weight, is weigh yourself and try and have one less meal every day or eat slightly later or intermittent. Whatever those habits are, create those slow habits that start to become, eventually those habits become behaviors that you do naturally. Always talk about it in the positive. Hey, I'm losing weight. I'm getting this way. I am this. It's never you're always doing something to get yourself through that process. And eventually it becomes your identity. I'm a runner. I'm a slim person. I'm a person that gets things done rather than identifying with I'm a procrastinator, I'm a fat person, I'm a lazy person. So you just change your whole identity. And sometimes it's faking until you're making, but that faking
I was just going to say that
everything.
A lot of people would feel uncomfortable doing it because they feel like they're not being authentic if they say something that's not true.
Yeah.
But you're saying that's actually healthy to do that, like even if you are overweight.
Even if it feels inauthentic to say it, you can say, I'm working on looking great. I'm working on I'm working on looking slim.
Okay.
You know, and it's not necessarily faking it because in the eyes of somebody else, everything is relative. Good and bad is always relative. So to you, you say, I'm, proactive. Oh, it doesn't feel right to say that I'm just a lazy person. But to somebody else, you're way more proactive than them. It's always a subjective matter. So sit in the space. Sit into the power space,
All right, final question. Do you feel that society is in a leadership crisis? Now, what do I mean by that? I know it's a big question. Meaning too many influencers and not enough actual leaders. Are we raising a new generation of free thinkers or programmed minds?
program minds. There's my language, right? Neuro-linguistic programming the minds. I think that that's exactly what has happened. I think that we see something, it sparks our curiosity, we program it in our minds. We see it again, we see it, and eventually that just programs itself in our minds. So we start to follow influencers. I like the way you put it into inverted commas. We follow them because they've told us this, and we got a like because we've reshared it or retweeted it or whatever it might be. And that's programmed us to think the same way. The concern really comes down, from my perspective, is if we really had to analyze the experience of those that are influencers, are they really talking from experience and from knowledge? Or is it just because A, they've been paid to do it, B, they get more likes by saying something, and C, maybe it's just an opinion.
Yeah.
And what happens is everybody's programming themselves to just blindly follow something. It's the old faith story right here. They're just blindly following these leaders. And I'm not sure that a lot of the leadership has got a lot of context behind it, has got the experience. Do you have, a 21-year-old life coach? Is that 21-year-old really a life coach? Might have done the training, might have done that. Has he gone through the experience of life?
Yeah.
I'm sure they can ask all the right questions and they can go down the path, but that to me is one of the concerns. It's always opinion. And I think if I can say one thing, we've always been taught in our lives to look at leaders and to follow leaders, but that's more management. I think a true leader will empower others to make their own decisions and to follow them because they are moving towards a higher goal or a better attainment, not for drinking more of this or selling more of that. It's got to have a better purpose. It's got to improve yourself, other people, or the planet. And that to me is a true leader, something that's going to inspire you to do good, to step up, be courageous, be kind. And if any of those leaders are talking about courage and kindness, they're actually starting to fit into my book of being a good leader. Other than that, they're doing it for themselves. And I think if I can take away two words, it's going to be, are they showing courage? Are they encouraging courage, good kind of courage, and at the same time being kind? That to me is a true leader. That's an influencer.
Yes, it is. I want to take a slight deviation as we come to a close about what you're also doing with your business with mental health first aid training. Now, this is something that is it's been happening for a while here in New Zealand, but you actually have something a little bit more comprehensive that you do to help kind of walk people through what other people are experiencing while they're having troubled thoughts. You want to talk about your website and your business?
Sure. Well, mental health first aid, if anybody breaks their arm or hurts themselves or falls off a ladder or whatever the case may be, we tend to have a lot of work around physical first aid. So a lot of organizations have physical first aiders, go and help with a heart attack, broken limb, whatever the case may be. But often mental challenges and mental illnesses are not diagnosed, and people tend to walk away and rather leave it to somebody else to deal with. Mental health first aid was a program that was developed, I'm going to say 11 years ago over in Australia. And it was all about getting people to understand, how can I first go and approach this person, assess what's going on, listen to what the stories are, and make a reasonable give reasonable information as to how they can actually help themselves, encourage professional support, encourage other help, and do it with knowledge around mental challenges and things like that.
Yeah.
So there's a number of programs that have been done in New Zealand and offer a program called Mental Health First Aid. You actually get qualified. You can go and work for an organization. The qualification sticks with you, just like a first aid qualification, sticks with you for 3 years, and you can move between companies and you can go and support your fellow person. I think there's awesome. Nothing worse than not supporting somebody that you care about. So yeah, great opportunity just to go out and help other people. It's called Mental Health First Aid.
Okay, and what's the website again?
mhfa.co.nz.
All right,
MHFA, Mental Health First Aid.co.nz. Yeah, it's just MHFA. Yeah.
I'm making this more complex than it needs to be, guys. So just listen exactly what he said. And
or just go and look up Mental Health First Aid and you'll find tons of websites and tons of programs. Yeah, mine's not the only one.
No, it's not. But I know that you share a lot of valuable information here today. And I know that there'll be a few people emailing me asking, about who's that Gary guy. So they'll be asking about, how to look you up. So look, I appreciate you coming on to the show. And that was really, really good. Awesome immigration story. And thank you for teaching us today about the unconscious mind and the conscious mind and what happens. And hope you guys got something out of that. And we'll finish it up. Do you have any final thoughts before we do?
No, just be courageous and be kind. And that's good enough. Thank you very much, Myron. Thank you for having me on.
Awesome. My pleasure. All right. That was another outstanding episode from this amazing studio, the Campfire Studios, Immigration Status Podcast, episode 5, done and dusted for season 3. Now, as I said before when we started this is the final season. Well, not the final season, but definitely we're coming to the end of the season. And I want you guys to continue to like and subscribe and go to the Uranga website as well for all of our content. You can find it there or you can find it on YouTube. For those who are listening on Spotify, thank you for your support. We have one more episode left in this season, but before we close off, we will say a big thank you to Gary Walker to come, just coming on and sharing like so much information. Like I'm pretty sure some of you guys will immediately go to Google and start watching related YouTube content and related videos. So a big special thank you to our sponsors, as usual, the Ministry of Ethnic Communities, Uranga, Navigators, and the Campfire Studios. Thank you. Can't thank you enough. So stay tuned. We will be back with the final episode after this. But until then, I'm Myron Turner. Keep watching, keep listening. Thank you.